Welcome.
Yeah.
You can stand, no, or you can sit as you like. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm so sorry for the delay. We're a bit late, I know. But sometimes, it's worth the wait. So you are CEO at Norwegian developer Aker Offshore Wind. And people, you might still know Philippe KAVAFYAN from his, numerous jobs in many different companies. I'm just going to cite a few of them. You were at Adwen when, at the time when that company was promising that 2 offshore wind factories would be constructed in Le Havre that are now up and running, right?
At that time, it was Areva.
Oh, it was Areva. Okay, well, thank you.
It turned
Sorry.
out to be Adwen. So, no, it was Areva promise.
Crossed wires here. But you were also at MHI Vestas at one point where you said one very famous phrase, partons en mer pour sauver la terre. So you said, let's go to sea to save the earth, right? Philippe, what's your secret? It's been an extraordinary journey. How do you manage to find your bearings in a market where the wind keeps changing?
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be back in Le Havre for all the reasons you mentioned, also for all the people I'm meeting again. And I think it would be the simplest way to summarize is the sailing analogy. I like sailing, so I'm going to use sailing analogies, but it's certainly not a straight line. So let's say I think everyone in the room has the same feeling that we collectively progress in the right direction, but we have to tack upwind and find our journey. And sometimes we decide when we need to tack and change course. Sometimes the companies or the shareholders decide when you need to tack, and you don't decide exactly your individual journey. But the fact is that you have the focus on the right direction. So I think the bearing is the fundamentals is that we are doing something useful to save the planet. And from there, if you have the right vision, then you stay focused on where you want to go, and you are patient with the wind shifts, and you do the best with the wind you get.
But change is not something that's easy for everybody.
Nobody likes change unless you look back and you realize that there's never been anything stable. So I think the confidence of the next 5 years should come from looking back 5 years. Where were we 5 years ago? Where were you 10 years ago? Yeah, it's a good moment to compare. We were in this same location. Over the last 10 years, you could see how things have been transforming, but you can project yourself back into that time and you say, okay, what did I think or what did I see coming? And the truth, and that's true for onshore wind, it's true for offshore wind bottom fix. I do believe it's the same for the coming floating segment. Every time I look back and I try to think what we were thinking, the reality has been outpacing our projection. So it's just the last 20 years that give me the confidence that the next 10 years are going to be over exceeding our expectation for...
In a good way.
In a good way, yeah. This is optimism. Because every time we wanted to develop new technology, become competitive for onshore wind, for offshore wind, the reality of the volume, the reality of the leverage cost of energy reduction always went further beyond all the prediction, and in a positive way. So when the reality is always outpacing your optimism, you stay optimistic.
Okay, all right. And what would you say, is there any particular anecdote you'd like to share with us? Or if not, your best piece of advice, all your secrets, basically?
Well, the people who know me, there's plenty of anecdotes for dinners, but I just, if I just compare some of the people in Synergy this week, 10 years ago, we were debating 5 megawatt, 6 megawatt machines for the French tenders on the first round. 2 years later, we were bringing 8 megawatt. So for 500 megawatt, we needed 100 units. At that time, Alstom and then GE needed, I think, 83. And then we came and we needed only 62 units. Okay, so, and then when you look at what happened just a few years later, you only needed much less units because we are now installing 11 megawatt. And if you look just a few years ahead, we are going to need basically 33 units. So from 100 units with the 5 megawatt, you go to install FECAR, you would need only 33 units in 2024, 2025, when the new Siemens and the new Vestas machine will come. So it's basically dividing by 3 the number of units you need to install. So if anyone believes in technology improvement, I think it's a nice perspective to remain optimistic about what is possible in 10 years. And of course, I hope everyone realizes that if you only have to install 33 units, it is a little bit cheaper than to have to install 100 units. So there's the technology, but there's the operational excellence that is actually driving all the cost of what we do to a third of the installation that you need to do. In addition, the bigger machine we install probably in, I don't want to commit for my ex-friends in Vestas or Siemens, but at least we were capable of installing 10 megawatt units in less than 12 hours. The 5 megawatt 10 years ago, it would take us 3 or 4 days to install and probably another week to commission. Today, I'm going to make some advertisement for Siemens, but probably you can install the latest machine in half a day, and the next day you power the unit. So you commission and you hand over. So this acceleration, the reduction of the time to deploy, the size of the machine, the reduction of number of units, all of that is basically making something that 10 years ago was expensive the best reliable and competitive solution for the energy transition. So from a niche threatened by onshore wind or solar PV that was reducing their cost, between 2010 and 2015, we were at risk of being a hobby club with some passionate about the ocean and wind. We became the pillar of the energy transition. And why? Because the cost is no longer a discussion. We are the most competitive, scalable source of renewable energy. I need to add scalable because unless you want to invade the nature with onshore wind, unless you find many empty places to put solar PV, to replace what we need to do in coal or to decarbonize the industries, we need offshore wind. And the only scalable, affordable, and now secure source of energy is going to be offshore wind. So there's, in front of us, there's 10 times growth potential. And so one other anecdote I would say is, okay, so now that we have convinced everyone that this is a good solution, how do we do it right? And there, I like to mention always operational excellence and not just technology. This is not just a design, I said yesterday, for the floating. So talking about technology, who would have been comfortable putting a 10 megawatt unit on a floater? Well, there's several of them running today. We did this with the semi-sub technology of Principal Power. And you know, it floats and it runs. And that's opening another gigantic market that is going to be deep waters, but also far shore. My optimism even goes to the fact that hydrogen is going to be probably another adventure where today I might look like a dreamer saying that we will produce hydrogen on a floating turbine and we will ship the hydrogen in a gas pipeline back to Germany from the North Sea or something like that. I think in 5 years, everyone will talk about it. So this capacity to project yourself into something that is competitive and maybe a technology challenge today, but with scale and industrial volume is capable of reducing the cost. We have seen it. I've seen it 3 times already, so I think it will happen again.
Right. Okay. Well, I was going to ask you, you who are apparently quite good at predicting the future, if you could have a little look into your crystal ball and tell everybody here in the room where, what part of the sector they should focus on, for a good job in the future, maybe. It's hydrogen, right?
I think there's 5 years, 10 years, 15 years projection you can imagine, because we know where the industry is heading. You see all the oil and gas majors are coming in, so floating and hydrogen are in front of a bright future. That's no doubt for me. The fact is that you can enjoy the scaling up of the volume of bottom fix in the coming 5 years. You can be in more of a pioneering startup if you want to do development of floating, and you can have a very interesting and fascinating industrial job producing in the factories that we promised that are now a reality. And all of that is, I think, a fascinating job. There's, at least you ask me, what are the key takeaways? Or I'm a strong believer of incremental innovation and not, maybe I'm not the Elon Musk of renewable at all. There's room for everyone, but I do believe that the reason we have now 15 megawatt turbines that are going to run, it's because we went through this steady and continuous technology improvement, but with people that had proven steps. Same thing for floating. I think it's good to have a 10 megawatt running on something and then going and consider a 15 megawatt is an incremental step. And innovation through incremental steps is probably the best way to keep the friends, the bankers as friends for investing in our business. The other thing is the continuous improvement. I talked about operational excellence, the reduction of the installation time. For me, this capacity to improve every day what we do, to reduce the time we take to install turbines, simplify every task, whether it's in production, in logistics. This is the fundamental, together with technology, the fundamental improvement of our industry. And that's back to your, where should you go? I think you should go in a place where you talk to people. The continuous improvement happens when you don't necessarily have to change company, but you need to be open with your ears and your eyes. So I many times share the experience of Esbjerg in Denmark. So Esbjerg is a logistic base where we have this Siemens is preparing their project on one side and Vestas is preparing their project on the other side. And fundamentally, we were moving the fence, depending who has more units to store before it's loaded on the... But this proximity, this capacity of learning from each other on all the continuous improvement is a strength that is making the entire industry progressing.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing everything you know about this sector, telling us everything about your life in renewables. Before you go, we have this beautiful sketch behind us, and I'd like you to react to it.
So yeah, I talk about upwind, and this is more like a downwind and enjoying a Spinnaker ride. I never felt like we were cruising with the Spinnaker and downwind. It was more like upwind, sitting on the rail. But I think my last message is that the reason it's easy to ride this journey, it's because we have very nice people we like to talk to on the rail. And I think many of them are in the room, and the reason we are passionate and we like to continue in offshore wind is really because despite all the company changes, we see the same people we like to work with.
Great. Thank you very much, Philippe KAVAFYAN, CEO at Norwegian developer Aker Offshore Wind.